Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear. Today, the Chris Reeve Large Sebenza 21 is going back in the mail to be sent back to my friend Sam, who loaned it to me. So I figured before I send it off, I would do one more video because yesterday I received this new to me Olamic Wayfarer 24/7S, means sheep's cliff, and I thought this would be a good comparison to make because the more I thought about it, even though this Wayfarer is definitely dressed up and has some extras on it compared to what would be considered like a standard or plain Jane version, if this were the plain Jane version, and functionally it's identical to a plain Jane version, then it would be a really solid comparison between the two of these because the Chris Reeve Sebenza, part of what's going for it is that it's completely US made. They use US materials, all that stuff, but it's about $450 when they were new. Now that the 31 is out, it may be cheaper, whatever. But yeah, so this was about a $450 titanium frame lock with what would many would consider premium steel. Excellent tolerances, all of that. Now the Olamic Wayfarer is, since this is kind of their mid-tech line, these parts are mostly manufactured in Italy, according to their website, but the company is located here in California, and they do all of the finishing, assembly, and essentially, the way I understand it, the parts are basically water jet cut or water cut. I don't know how you say that elsewhere. And then the actual like craftsmanship that goes into the knife is done here in California. Anywho, it is also a titanium frame lock with what is certainly considered a premium steel in today's day and age. And this one, new, if you're to get the plain Jane version, I believe, and I checked on a couple of websites to confirm, they come in so many versions that it's not that common to see one that's like totally stripped down. But if you get one that's about as plain as you can get it, they're about $475. So $450 to $475. Our prices are pretty dang close there. So I figured this would be a fun comparison. If you're the kind of person who it's of the utmost importance to you to only get something that has only been made in the US, then don't watch this because the Chris Reeve is the obvious winner. But I did a quick little scoring on just a few categories of what are important to me on a pocket knife, and it's actually pretty close. If you've watched my week-long carry challenge of the Sebenza, you'll know that I don't plan to buy one of these. I don't particularly like the Sebenza, but I tried to look at this as objectively as possible and score them fairly, not totally just on my own preference, although some of the categories are preference related. So keep that in mind, but it came out really close. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing that I wanted to score these two on was looks, the aesthetics of the knife. So let's see if I can get these in a way where they show off real well. Now, I don't think the Sebenza is a bad looking knife, not even a little bit. I think it's nice how simple and crisp all the lines are, but it's very simple. And everyone who's into the Sebenza, I assume, will admit that. There's nothing complex going on here. If you think knife and you have a basic image of a knife pop in your head, it probably looks a lot like this. Now, the Wayfarer, on the other hand, even if you get rid of this inlay and you changed all the hardware to just satin or whatever, this is a much more striking knife in its appearance. When I show people the Wayfarer, this is my second one, people are generally pretty drawn to it, specifically with the sheep's cliff blade shape. I feel like people really like the way that looks, not just as a blade on its own, but with the aesthetics of the handle as a whole. I just think this knife looks gorgeous. Let me flip them to lock side so you can see lock side as well. You'll see again the clip on the Sebenza. It's just a pocket clip. There's nothing extra going on there. So take that for what it is, whereas the pocket clip on this one, this version is Damascus, but imagine it's just titanium. It's the same color as the frame. Still, this pocket clip has more shape and style going to it. It's running a ceramic, like a ball bearing there, that's set into it to raise it up off of the scale. Like it's just I think visually this knife is more stunning in my opinion. And this knife comes in 4 different blade shapes, I think. Yeah, because there's the drop point, the tanto, the harpoon, and the sheep's cliff. So yeah, 4 blade shapes on that one. You can get this one in the Insingo, which may be more of an apt comparison to this in the sheep's cliff, but these are the blade shapes I have on me. Anywho, the clear winner in my book for looks is the Wayfarer. Obviously, that's objective. If what you like in the looks department is as simple can get, then the Sebenza is the one for you. I am not that way. I certainly don't like massively overdone knives. I'm not usually like a full dress type of guy. I generally even stay away from materials like Damascus. In fact, I may be changing this or de-anodizing it just because I'm not totally sold on that, but some people love it, and I will say it adds a certain level of kind of panache to the knife. Anywho, all right, so clear winner in the looks department, my book, Wayfarer. Now, the next one is the action. So if you've watched my Sebenza videos, you will know that I personally do not really like the action on the Sebenza. I get why so many people seem to really like it, but for me, it's just not, it doesn't scratch any kind of itch for me. It works, it reliably deploys and locks, but that's about where it ends for me. It's kind of like the design of the knife, about as simple as it can get. There's nothing really fun about that to me. So the action just kind of is what it is. The Wayfarer, on the other hand, has one of my favorite actions in a knife. Now, not only is it great with the flipper, it's got an awesome detent. It feels like it's got a really steady kind of ramp to it, so it loads and then just flies out. But because it has the hole as well, it's hard to do in front of a camera, I can spidey flick it, which is a lot of fun for me. I love to be able to spidey flick knives. I prefer holes to thumb studs. So again, action is going to go to the Wayfarer. I just have so much more fun fidgeting and playing with this knife compared to the Sebenza. I think it's a no-brainer. I love that it has multiple methods of deployment. I love that even though it's not drop shut, which I typically really enjoy knives that are drop shut, this one is not that way. You really got to kind of shake it down. But you get this really satisfying, like the way that the blade sucks back in with that detent ramp. It's such a like positive engagement sensation. Like you can just feel it, slurp it right in. And it's a really cool action in my opinion. It's a lot of fun to play with, but it's also reliable and solid. It doesn't feel loose or anything like that. Both these knives have incredibly solid lockup. There's no play in any direction on either of these. So the action being more fun on the Wayfarer isn't making it less reliable. So yeah, action, clear win to the Wayfarer. Let me go ahead and wipe down that blade now that I scuffed it up, because it is a nice shiny satin on the Wayfarer. All right, next category. Let's move into ergos. Now, ergos are a little bit subjective as well. I figured I'll get kind of all the subjective ones out quick. That way the people who are mad at me for making this video can just stop watching right off the bat. Anywho, ergos on the Sebenza, they're fine. This knife, because it's very simple, I feel like I expected the ergos to be better before having one and using one. They're just okay to me. Nothing about this knife is sharp. Nothing hurts to hold. The jimping and the spine are fantastic. But the way that the knife rests in my hand, it's not even close to perfect. It feels a little bit kind of blocky and rectangular. It's not melting into my hand, even though these edges are chamfered pretty well. I just feel where all of the edges and kind of corners and things are on the knife. The way that this is just a straight surface for my hand kind of puts it in a weird, like I could use a little bit of a bulge there. yeah, it's fine, but I don't particularly like it. In fact, the ergos are one of the things that I kind of hold against the Sebenza as to why I don't really want one, just because it doesn't feel great in my hand. And a knife at this price point, if it doesn't feel great in my hand, I'm not going to really want to like use it. And then if it's not fun to play with, then what's the point? That's just kind of the way it is for me. Now, the Wayfarer, on the other hand, for my hands, now I wear a medium, largish glove. I'm kind of in between. Some brands I'm a medium, some brands I'm a large. My hands are not huge. I have hands kind of on the smaller end compared to a lot of the guys that I know. But for my hand, the Wayfarer is the best ergonomic knife that I've ever owned. This one and the one that I owned previously both just melt into my hand. Now, keep in mind, if your hands are larger than mine, you might not have that same experience because my pinky comes right to the end of this, this kind of crescent here. So my pointer finger fits perfectly in that foremost, I don't know if you want to call it a choil or a cutout or what, just fits perfectly there. The way that this is cut out, this side is slightly proud compared to the show side, so you can disengage the lock easily, but it's not like it is on this cutout where it's a specific like notch in the knife. On this, it feels right to me. Where my fingers want to land is exactly where they're supposed to go on this frame. It just feels excellent. And I can imagine, even if you had slightly bigger hands than mine and your pinky wanted to land right there, that spot works for it as well. It's a nice, soft, pleasant spot to put my finger. And then the bulge back here, the way this swells into my palm in a saber grip, which is how I find myself in real use, holding the knife the most, it's just excellent. And then even if I come to a hammer grip, still fantastic. I can put this knife in a reverse grip and it feels amazing. I really, really like this knife ergonomically. Because of the shape of the handle, I guess it's not the best for like draw cuts. I don't do draw cutting very often. But if you are, then I guess that's worth mentioning. Because of this curve, it's definitely meant to be a forward-facing knife. Although I will say in kind of a standard reverse grip, it does feel excellent. I've got a perfect spot to put my thumb right here, and that works as well. So take that for what it is. But yeah, for me, this is probably the category where it's the farthest apart in terms of the winner. This knife is just fantastic for me in terms of ergonomics, and this knife is just bleh for me in terms of ergonomics. So clear win to the Wayfarer in that category. Now, the next category would be fit and finish. Both these knives are made of really nice materials. They're both titanium frame locks. This one runs on washers. The Wayfarer is on bearings, I think. I'm almost positive. Yeah, it's on bearings. The Wayfarer, to me, feels every bit as well constructed as the Sebenza does. And this is my second one. I've also held quite a few at shows, but having had this one in pocket for about 24 hours now, having owned one that I have nothing but incredible memories of, I think a lot of people try to make the claim that the Sebenza is unmatched in terms of fit and finish, and that's part of why I wanted to make this particular head-to-head video, because in my experience, this knife is no better in fit and finish than the Wayfarer is. I'm not going to say the Wayfarer is better either. I think it's pretty much a draw, in my opinion. I'm going to call it a tie on this category because they're both just fantastically built knives. The tolerances are tight. There's no gaps. There's no wiggle. There's no play anywhere. The finishing on all of the edges feels deliberate. The hardware is set in perfectly. Yeah, they're both put together incredibly well. So no winner here, but I think that's important to say because so many people act like the Sebenza is the end-all be-all of fit and finish. I've had so many people tell me I need to watch their shop tour before I keep talking about the Sebenza. I've watched their shop tour. I've seen their facilities via video. I haven't been there. I've watched just about everything realistically that I could while I was doing that week-long challenge with this knife. Fantastic fit and finish, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that other people's fit and finish isn't as good. And I think Olamic is nailing it in the fit and finish department, just like Chris Reeve is. So going to call it a draw in terms of fit and finish. Now, the next question is value. So again, let's assume that this is a plain Jane version. So we've got just a regular titanium clip. There's no inlay. The hardware is not anodized or anything fancy. That they're essentially, in terms of spec, the same. Now, this knife is $450. This knife is $475 if you take away all these extras. Again, this one's going to kind of be a draw to me. Chris Reeve uses great titanium. They have great tolerances. They use great hardware. The blade is S35 VN. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'll say I prefer M390, but their S35 VN is excellently heat treated. There's a ton of people who have great experiences with it and really like specifically their S35 VN, the way they do it, and they claim that it's every bit as good as M390 is from other manufacturers. I haven't done enough cutting with either of these to notice a negligible difference in terms of edge retention or anything like that. But yeah, the value for this one, with the materials it's being offered in, is to a lot of people the warranty. It is the fit and finish. It's knowing that they're getting something that's made by people they respect here in the United States, all that, and I think that's somewhat valid. I think a lot of similar things could be said about the Olamic. I have met some of the guys from Olamic. I think they're fantastic people. They've been nothing but pleasant to deal with, to communicate with. They also have a lifetime warranty on their products. They also have programs that, in my opinion, are really fun for these knives. So assume you did get a totally basic Wayfarer. Nothing special about it. It's just a blasted titanium frame and a satin blade in whatever shape you choose, and that's it. There's nothing else going on the knife. It's just the way it comes. If you got a little bored with that configuration and wanted to send it to Olamic to have them do something cool to it, you could do that. After purchasing it, owning it for a year, having it in your pocket all the time, you could send it to Olamic, and for a very reasonable fee, they would upgrade your knife for you, which is really, really cool to me. If you do something to damage your knife, in my experience, I've never had to send one in, but I've got several friends who have used their Olamics super hard, and if they've ever had any kind of issue, even just a piece of hardware getting messed up, or even if it's cosmetic, whatever it is, they've had nothing but positive experiences sending their knives back to Olamic. So Chris Reeve does their spa thing. They take care of you incredibly well on warranty. So does Olamic. And Olamic has been around for long enough that I don't feel like they're going anywhere either. So that lifetime warranty, in my opinion, I wouldn't be swayed either direction because of the warranty, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think they both have great records of taking care of their customers and making it easy, and just, yeah, Olamic even does that upgrade thing, which is really cool. So I'm going to call the value a tie. These are both expensive knives. They both have good materials, even though I prefer M390 slightly. I don't think it's enough of a difference to be like, this knife's a way better value. Yeah, so we're going to call that a tie. Next, carry. So having these knives in pocket. Let's take a look at them closed next to each other, the way that they would sit in your pocket. You'll notice right off the bat, the Sebenza is slimmer in pocket. It doesn't have a flipper tab, and neither of them sits deep. On each of them, let's turn them around this way. This one you'll have about that much sticking out of your pocket. On this one, you'll have about that much sticking out of your pocket. It's about the same. So I'm going to give carry to the Sebenza. I've had both of these knives in pocket. I carried this for a whole week. I carried my last Wayfarer all the time. I had this one in pocket all day yesterday. Some people throw shade at the Wayfarer, like the clip is a negative about it. I really like the clip on the Wayfarer. For me, I've had it in jeans, I've had it in chinos, I've had it in slacks, I've had it in shorts. I've had it in pocket in just about every type of pants that I own. I don't have any like super thick Carhartts or anything, but yeah, for me, this pocket clip works really well. But I will say the Chris Reeve clip, being as simple and straightforward and just kind of nice and flexible as it is, this clip going in and out of pocket is easier. It sits nice and tight kind of against the edge of your pocket. It's easy to get your hand past. This one is not bad in pocket, not even close. I really like carrying the Wayfarer, but the Sebenza is better. It's just a smaller print. They both weigh about the same. The Sebenza might be slightly lighter. I'd have to put them on a scale, which I don't have, so that's not going to happen. You can look up the weights on these. But yeah, carry's going to go to the Sebenza. The Sebenza carry's great. It's one of the things I like most about it. If it did other things that I don't like about it so much, I would love to own a Sebenza, if nothing else, because if it could have a fun action and the ergos were a little better for me, it carries really well. So carry's going to the Sebenza. Now, the last one I have written down, I may ramble a little bit more. I'll try not to. Anywho, the last category I have on these is the cutting ability. Now, as I have mentioned, Chris Reeve is using S35VN. Olamic is using M390 on the Wayfarer. I've cut a decent bit with each of these knives respectively. This particular Wayfarer, not a ton because I just received it yesterday. That does pick up scuffs real quick, doesn't it? I'm gonna go ahead and wipe that down. Now, what I'll say about the cutting ability is that the Chris Reeve certainly is thinner behind the edge. The Wayfarer is a flat grind, whereas the Sebenza is a hollow grind. Now, the hollow grind is really well done on the Sebenza. The way that this edge gets nice and thin right there at, I guess, what you would call the apex, it's a fantastic cutter. The S35VN is heat treated really well at this point. This knife, supposedly, I haven't done enough cutting with it to reasonably get to where I should have gone through an edge, not even close. But many people claim it's got great edge retention, and it takes an awesome edge. They send it from factory with a convex edge, which is kind of cool. Yeah, its ability as a cutting instrument, the Sebenza, is awesome. Now, the Wayfarer as a cutting instrument is fine. This grind is, like I said, not particularly thin behind the edge. It's actually somewhat thick behind the edge. I've only owned this knife in this blade shape, so their other blade shapes may have different cutting performance. The reasons I like this blade shape so much are primarily aesthetics. I think it looks really, really cool. I also like Wharncliffes for EDC type tasks, for going through cardboard, opening mail, stuff like that. I like the way that a Wharncliffe comes to a conclusion at this tip. They call it a sheep's cliff. I should specify it's like a cross between a sheep's foot and a Wharncliffe. But yeah, this one as a cutter, if you're running through paper, cardboard, rope, whatever your like typical everyday cutting tasks are, it's just, in my experience, not going to perform quite as well as the Sebenza does. Does that mean that this is a bad cutter? No. Do I dislike actually using the Wayfarer for cutting? No. I really like cutting with the Wayfarer, and for me, I would still, frankly, prefer grabbing this knife because ergonomically it feels so much better in my hands, and it still has a nice sharp edge. It's not so thick that it's unusable, not even close. It's still a great cutter, but the actual edge and the thinness behind it on the Sebenza does make it a better cutting blade. So even though I prefer using this knife, it doesn't mean that this blade is better at cutting. So I'm going to give this to the Sebenza. I just find it hard not to defend the Wayfarer because I love it so much. Anywho, winner in that category is the Sebenza. It is better at cutting with this grind. The way that that blade is configured, it's better for going through material. And that's as simple as I can put it. So where does that leave us? At the end of the... Let's see, I got to count real quick. I should have totaled this before. All right, so the way I scored it is if one wins, one loses. It's a 1 and a 0 in that category. And if they tie, then it's a 1 and a 1. So the way we ended up, if you were keeping score, you'll already know, we have a winner, 5-4. the Wayfarer to the Sebenza. Now, let me express real quick that I would probably buy 10 Wayfarers before I would buy one Sebenza. But that's for me, my hands, my preferences as a knife, or what I look for in a knife. I think that the Sebenza is an awesome cutting tool. Like I just expressed, it's better at cutting. So if what you're buying a knife for, is only the way it goes through material, the Sebenza is the one for you. If you're buying a knife because it's more fun, more exciting, has a better action, it just has, I don't know if you want to call it an X factor or what, some show-stopping ability, I think the Wayfarer is so much cooler. And as I expressed, they both have awesome warranties. They're both companies that are at least based in the US and does most of their work in the US. In fact, if you buy a custom from Olamic, then it will be entirely US made. That wouldn't be a fair price comparison. But yeah, I don't think there's a big gap in terms of what you get for your money. I don't think there's a big gap in terms of material quality or fit and finish or anything like that. So at the end of the day, my preference is clear. I really like knives that are a little more fun, that have some cool factor to them, that aren't just simple, but I still appreciate things like good ergonomics. I don't want a knife that just looks cool but fits my hand like crap. I don't want a knife that just looks cool but can't cut anything. This is still an awesome cutting tool, and all of the EDC tasks I've thrown at my previous Wayfarer and will throw at this one, it's going to excel at. It does great. They treat their M390 really well. It's got a fantastic factory edge on it. And there's so many little things about the Wayfarer that, to me, the closer you get to it, the more interesting it becomes. Whereas with the Sebenza, the closer you get to it, the less interesting it becomes. So yeah, that's going to be the quick little head-to-head. I guess it wasn't that quick. I'm over 25 minutes now, but this is the battle between these two. My choice is clear. Even though it's a 5-4 victory, to me it might as well be a 9-1 victory. I just prefer the Wayfarer, but I tried to be objective so that if you're looking at these knives and your preferences are different than mine, then hopefully this is still helpful between these two. So yeah, that'll be that. This has been fun. I'll probably do a couple more of these videos. I don't really like the idea of just doing a bunch of this type of video because there's so many already out there, but I don't believe anyone has made this comparison between these two knives before, so I think that makes it a little bit fun. Anywho, this has been Jake with Bearded Gear, and peace out.